Who is this person who claimed in the 19th century to bring a new revelation from God? Why did he willingly undergo 40 years of hardship and deprivation to demonstrate the validity of his beliefs? Why have over 6 million people in 200 countries and some 127,000 localities chosen to become followers of Baha'u'llah?
Kia ora, and welcome to Baha'i on Air. We're filming from our annual Baha'i Summer School in Hamilton. My name is Kirsten Zemke, and often as a part of our summer school program, we invite an exciting guest from overseas to energize us and inspire us with new ideas. And this year we're very excited to have as our guest Tom Price, Tim Prince, T-Dog, T-Pain, T-Rex, Dr. Tom. What would you like us to call you?
You could call me Tom.
Tom.
Yes.
Tom Price. So before we get started, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm visiting here in New Zealand for the first time in 16 years. I've come back to this beautiful country, but I did live in Australia for 17 years, although I was born and raised in the United States. I currently live in Los Angeles, where I work primarily as a record producer and a composer, conductor, musician, but I'm currently writing a book.
Well, that sounds very exciting. Music producer. Can you tell us a bit about stuff that you've done?
Well, you probably don't remember now. I worked for many years with a singer named Billy Field, who had a song named Bad Habits and a couple of other ones. I wrote that song, Bad Habits, with Billy and produced his record. I work mainly as a production manager, producer. Sometimes I'm an orchestrator or an arranger.
So now, when you were last in New Zealand, many years ago, you put together a choir for what we call the Pacific Horizons Conference.
Oh yes, I remember the Pacific Horizons Conference. It was so much fun. We gathered together, I think we just had a few days, and we rehearsed every day, and then in the final evening we had this big concert. And this was exciting for me because there were so many different cultures represented there. They came from all over the Pacific. A lot of Polynesians were there, and they sing beautifully.
As I want to mention, this group here have only been singing together for 3 days. But when you hear them tonight, you will think that they've been singing for at least 4 days. They are spectacular.
I was there at that time, and I know you probably do this with other events. You incorporate different styles of music into the performance.
Well, usually whoever I can use. At the Pacific Horizons Conference, we had a singer named Dash Crofts, who was a pop singer from the group Seals and Crofts, who had hits like Summer Breeze and so on. So he came out, he has a beautiful voice, and we used him. We had a Persian singer named Ava. And she sings traditional Persian music and even popular Persian music. And when we've been to other parts of the world, when we go to Asia, we'll sing, Chinese or Japanese music. When we go to Eastern Europe, we sing music in that style. So we believe that music is not just a universal language, but it is actually language of the human soul.
Different religions have different approaches to music. And so what's sort of the Baha'i teachings about music?
Well, we believe that music is like a ladder that can lead you to God. It's a ladder that leads you to heaven. And we all know this. Music uplifts our souls when we're sad or angry, and we hear music. It calms us, it relaxes us. And so we try to use music to bring out the higher nature of people. To attract them towards world peace, towards God, towards good sentiments, towards the oneness of the human race and so on. And music can do this.
To me, one of the beautiful things about the Baha'i Faith is our Baha'i writings. And you as a composer, I know you've set some of these Baha'i writings to music.
All things are love, all things, and nothing new, the heavens or the earth.
In many of our activities, we like to sing the sacred text of the world's religions, and we will sing from the Bible and from the New Testament, the Old Testament, the Quran, and even the scriptures of other religions, Buddhist and Hindu. And the Baha'i writings are very beautiful. They were originally written in either Arabic or Persian, and they've been translated into almost every language of the world. And they have some beautiful sentiments, so sometimes we just take a sentence or two or a few phrases and sing those so it can bring out the meaning of those. And I have several recordings of choral music that's set just to that, because in our Baha'i temples we sing just with the human voice and no instruments.
You mentioned the Baha'i House of Worship, and I know you talked about that a bit in your talk here at the summer school. Do you want to explain what is the House of Worship and its function?
They're a place where everyone can come together to worship the one God, irrespective of what background they come from, what religion, and where it can be the center of service to humanity, to be of benefit, to help the aged, the poor, the sick, and so on, because Baha'is believe that it's not enough just to worship God. Worship has to be combined with serving mankind. And so the Baha'i House of Worship is a center both for worship and service.
When you say praying or worship, it probably means slightly different things to different people. So maybe explain what the Baha'i concept is of prayer and worship.
Well, we believe prayer is speaking to God, praying to the one God that we all, some call him Allah, some call him God or Jehovah. And this one God is the creator of all. We don't even believe that there's a difference in religion, that there's really only one religion, and that all the founders of the world's religions, Jesus and Moses, Muhammad, Buddha, Krishna, Abraham, they were all part of a single religion. And it's only man that has divided these religions through misunderstanding. So we believe in the unity of all religions, we believe in the unity of all mankind, and so we try to create an environment where all peoples can come together and worship God with this common belief in the one true God. Our temples have 9 sides, but they also have 9 doors. So you can enter them from any side, but they have a dome. And the dome at the top has the name of God, so everyone can come from all sides, so when they come in and they look up, there's just the one God.
Now you mentioned different religions, and for some people it seems that religion almost is having a detrimental effect to world peace. So how would you respond to that?
Oh, well, I don't think religion ever had the intention of causing disunity, but people sometimes can take something and make it the cause of disunity when it was never intended to be there. Religion has always been there to cause unity. In fact, as Baha'is, we believe that if religion doesn't bring about unity, it's better to have no religion at all. So this is what we are working towards, to unite people irrespective of their background or their religion or their race or their nation. These things that we use to divide us, they're part of the past of mankind. They're part of the immaturity of humanity. You know, when a child is immature, he gradually grows up. The world is growing up today, and we're realizing that unity is the most important thing. And this message is resonating throughout the world.
Baha'is love your music, and you've used your skills to serve the faith. And I know one of the things many Baha'is remember you for was putting a large choir together for what we call the Baha'i World Congress.
Yes. The Baha'i World Congress was a highlight of my life because we had this huge conference or congress in New York City in New York in 1992, because 1992 was the 100th anniversary of the passing of the founder of the Baha'i Faith, Baha'u'llah, who we believe is a messenger of God like Jesus and Muhammad and Buddha. He passed away in 1892, and so in 1992 we had this big centenary celebration. 35,000 people came from every spot on the earth, and they gave me a large choir, 420 singers, and an orchestra of 92 players, and we wrote music specially for that occasion. And this conference was broadcast live on satellite throughout the world.
How do you feel about the pressure of composing for something that's so big in Baha'i history?
It may have been a bit of a pressure, but it was also a whole lot of fun. It was a lot of joy, because as you're composing the music, you're imagining all these people coming together and seeing that audience of 35,000 people, and the significance of the occasion causes you to really be inspired, I hope. But in any case, we had a lot of fun doing it, and it was just a whole lot of joy. That whole year leading up to it, I remember we were working so hard on the music, was just like living in heaven the whole year.
So when did you first hear about the Baha'i Faith?
I can't remember how old I was, somewhere between the ages of about 9 and 11. My mother had actually become a Baha'i, but I hadn't heard about it. And I remember my father was going to take me to a basketball game. It was the USC-UCLA game, which is the biggest game in California. I was so excited I couldn't sleep for days that my dad was going to take me to this game. We went to the game that night. We drove all the way from Malibu into Los Angeles, and the game was canceled. And I was so upset. And then my father said something even worse. He said, since we drove an hour and a half in and the game is canceled, we don't want to drive an hour and a half home and spend 3 hours. So why don't we go to one of these religious meetings that your mother is having right now? And that was 1,000 times worse. And I remember I was crying uncontrollably in the car that I missed the game and I had to go to this meeting. So we went to this meeting, and it was at the home of a lady by the name of Gwen Wakeling, who was a very famous Hollywood costume designer, had won several Academy Awards. And we got there, and she said, we have this 2 people from the Pacific Islands who are traveling on a sailboat just visiting, and they're going to give a story and a report about their travels. And it was Gina and Russ Garcia. And the first time I ever heard the word Baha'i or Baha'i Faith was out of the mouth of Russ Garcia. And he started speaking, and he was telling jokes and stories and funny stories and singing songs on the ukulele. And by the end of the night, I was laughing and having so much fun. You know, just an hour or 2 earlier, I was crying. And I learned of the Baha'i Faith through Gina and Russ Garcia. And of course, later on, I declared myself as a believer in the faith. But when I came to Australia many years later, Russ Garcia became my idol. And it's ironic because I ended up becoming a musician, a composer, just like him, and ended up living in the same part of the world. I was in Sydney and he was in New Zealand. And I ended up following a path like him. So he became very much my idol, my mentor. I visited him here in the Bay of Islands at his house. I studied his book. Whenever we had a Baha'i conference anywhere in the world, he and I were there. So he really was a great inspiration to me.
Hurt not others as you yourself would find hurtful.
Judaism.
We should love our neighbors as we love ourselves.
Christianity.
Do unto others as you would want them to do unto you.
Islam.
Desire for your brother that which you desire for yourself.
Baha'i.
Blessed is he who prefers his brother before himself.
Kia ora. If you've just joined us, you're watching Baha'i on Air, and we're at our annual Baha'i Summer School in Hamilton, and we're interviewing our guest speaker for the summer school, Tom Price, who's a world famous, all over the world, not just in New Zealand, composer and musician, and especially choir director. And we've been talking to him about the talks he's been given and some of his amazing work with Baha'i choirs. So here at our summer school, what are the sorts of things that you'll be saying in the talks?
The title of my program here in New Zealand this year is called Spiritual Transformation. And the reason they asked me to speak on this subject is that this year, it so happens, is the 100th anniversary of the introduction of the Baha'i Faith to New Zealand. The first believer in Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i Faith in New Zealand, Margaret Stevenson, became a follower exactly 100 years ago. And so they're having big celebrations to mark this occasion. And the title of the conference this year is called Constructing a New World Through Spiritual Transformation. And now I want you to think, what can I do today? What can I, forget about tomorrow, forget about that. What can I do today? Can I see the good in somebody? Can I smile more? Can I do something? Just try to do something today. That's all. Tomorrow, you can do the same thing and worry about tomorrow. But today, I want to do something. This is the essential quality of spiritual development. Because if you take a step today, then you can take that step tomorrow. Then you can take that step tomorrow. That is really one of the essential qualities of spiritual development.
Now, how does the Baha'i Faith go from one slightly older lady 100 years ago being a Baha'i. How does that become then a large Baha'i community in New Zealand? How does that happen?
Well, the Baha'is are happy to share their faith with people. And so they share it. We don't proselytize, and we don't do some of the things that other religions do. But we're quite happy to share our teachings and our love for the Baha'i teachings with others. People don't even have to become Baha'is. We invite people to join with us in trying to make a better world, to try and serve mankind. And so naturally people are attracted to the Baha'i teachings. In fact, there's some 7 million people in the world today who call themselves Baha'is, and there are many more who love the Baha'is and work with the Baha'is, even followers of many other religions. It's a very fast-growing religion.
How does someone know they're a Baha'i? People might say, oh, I believe in equality of women and men, I believe in world unity. What makes someone a Baha'i?
Well, there's many ways of looking at that. One way is to say anyone who practices and carries out the ideals of the Baha'i Faith is already a Baha'i in one sense. In another sense, someone is a Baha'i when they have learned and read the teachings of the founders of the Baha'i Faith. That is Baha'u'llah, who lived in Persia in the last century, the country now of Iran. He was imprisoned and he ended up passing away as a prisoner in Palestine, which is now Israel, and his son Abdul Baha, and now we have various other administrative bodies in the Baha'i Faith. We read his writings, we accept him as a true teacher from God, and we try to carry out and practice his teachings. But I should say that a Baha'i is someone who doesn't just believe these things. It's someone who tries to put them into practice in the world. That, to me, is what distinguishes a Baha'i from someone who's not a Baha'i, someone who is working towards the betterment of the human race.
You said you're writing a book.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us what that's about?
Yes, I'm writing a book. The title of the book is called The Science of Spirituality. And basically, it came about 4 or 5 years ago when I started realizing that there were a lot of things that I had learned in my study of music that were quite scientific, because a lot of people don't realize that music is half science, half music. And I found that spirituality to a lot of people seems to be rather vague, maybe kind of airy, and they're not quite sure what it means. And when I studied spirituality in all religions, I found that there were very specific things that we can do that can help us to become more spiritual. In fact, to become spiritual is like a new form of life. It's like there's a life of the soul, just like there's a life of the body. And just as we can study, organic chemistry or some other form of physical life, we can study spiritual life in the same way. And there are principles and laws and so on. So I came up with this idea of the science of spirituality, and I started speaking on this subject about 4 or 5 years ago. And gradually people said they don't want to hear my music anymore. They just want to hear me talking on the science of spirituality. And finally a publisher recently approached me and asked me to write this book for their publishing company in Los Angeles. And I've been working on the book, and I hope that it comes out soon.
Tell us a little more about yourself personally. I know you've brought your mother here, you've got a family.
I actually come from a very musical family. My mother was a piano player, my father sang, and I was raised, first I was taught music and the violin and so on. So also my children have become musicians. 2 of my daughters are professional singers. My daughter Emily, she's an opera singer. She sings with classical opera companies, and she has toured the world. She's sung in Carnegie Hall and all kinds of places in the world. My daughter Rachel is a jazz singer. In fact, she's quite popular now in the United States singing jazz, and she has been touring with the Baha'i choir since she was 9 years old. It's a real joy to have music in the family, and so I was raised with my family, and my children also are quite musical.
Baha'is don't have a clergy.
No.
So how do Baha'is organize themselves and their religion, and it's not just people by themselves praying?
We don't have a clergy, but we do have organization, administration. We have assemblies and various other bodies and certain appointed individuals. So we're quite organized. It's just that we do not believe that any one person has the responsibility of my or your spiritual health, that you yourself have the ability, the maturity for your own spiritual development, and no one needs to tell you. You have a direct connection to God. You have the ability to see and recognize truth for yourself. And so we try to empower people spiritually so that they all can learn to know and worship God, and we're not told what to do. This is the same with a child. A child has a parent up until a certain age, and then when it reaches maturity, say around 15, 16, 17, 18, then it also has to take responsibility for its own life and livelihood. And we believe this is the time of the maturity of the human race. So the era of mullahs and priests and rabbis and so on, it was very good up until the past. We have nothing against priests or rabbis or mullahs. But now it's time for all of us to realize that we have the ability to see spiritual truth for ourselves.
So if someone's a Baha'i, how does their daily life differ from anybody else?
Well, in many ways it doesn't, but first of all, to be a Baha'i means to love everybody, to see only the good in people, to never criticize people, to never say something bad behind their back, to try and help people, to try and serve people. In fact, the son of the founder of the Baha'i Faith was asked one time, what does it mean to be a Baha'i? And he said, to be a Baha'i means to love mankind and to serve mankind. And anyone that does that is a Baha'i, whether they call themselves one or not.
Now, I know Baha'is in various communities around the world, one of the ways they're serving mankind is offering classes for children and junior youth and adults. Do you want to explain some of that?
Yes. Throughout the world, we have programs for the development, literacy programs throughout the world, programs to help women to raise the status of girls and women, programs to help youth, programs to help the poor, the aged, the sick. This is a focus of the Baha'i teachings, that in order for me to develop spiritually, I need to help mankind. I need to serve mankind because I can't just be concerned with myself. In order to help myself, I have to help others. So this is a focus, and you will see this in any part of the world you go to, here in New Zealand or in the Pacific Islands or in America. You'll find that Baha'is are doing this. And this is a matter of religious belief. Religion has to result in action.
Now, what would you say to somebody that doesn't know anything about the Baha'i Faith, or maybe even thinks spirituality is irrelevant? What do you feel living spiritually or joining a religion like the Baha'i Faith has to offer for the average human being?
Oh, well, I think that what the world needs most is spirituality. That we are so enmeshed in materialism in the world today, and we're chasing after things of this world, and we chase after them to such an extent that it causes us to hurt other people and to be greedy and selfish. In fact, the entire world is suffering because we don't have a spiritual perspective. We don't realize that we have an eternal soul and a being within us that is very great, that is very high, and we drag ourselves down. And all of the religions have tried to call us towards the spiritual side of life. And many people, they are attracted to spirituality, but not organized religion. In other words, there's some people that say, I love spirituality, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. And this is only because religion has lost its true connection to uplift the soul of man. Religion has become a little bit impure because people have tried to control it or make it the source of power or fame or glory or money or whatever. So I feel that perhaps I can take the teachings of Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Abraham, Moses, and Baha'u'llah, who's the founder of the Baha'i Faith, take them and express them in a way that people can see that they bring us some good to our lives, some fulfillment. If you are unhappy, spirituality may be the way to become happy, because if you think you're only going to get happiness if you have material things like money or wealth or power or status, you're going to chase after that. You may get it and you still won't be happy. But if you can find God in your life and find serenity in spirituality, then this will be long-lasting and eternal happiness.
No, so that's about personal spiritual transformation, but Baha'is also talk about, you know, organizing broader society changes. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, of course, the world cannot change if we don't change personally, because we are the authors of all the problems of the world today. Everything that's wrong in the world today, everything that we're suffering from, whether it be economics or war or environmental problems, we're the authors of it. We personally have created it by our attitudes and our characteristics, our inclinations. And we can be the authors of the beauty in the world too, if we will change personally. So of course, the first thing is that individuals have to change. If the hearts of people change, then of course, the world will become a better place. But then also the ways in which we govern the world, the ways in which we have political structures, economic theories, and the ways in which we organize money, the ways in which we treat the environment. All of these things also need to be re-looked at. We need to examine the way in which the world is ordered. And so Baha'is, we look at both personal transformation and change and governmental, institutional, organizational change, because all of these things need to evolve. And we believe the world is on the brink of tremendous beauty, tremendous transformation towards world peace and unity and the oneness of mankind.
Thank you very much for coming to New Zealand and talking to all of us and for talking to Baha'i on Air.
Thank you very much, Kristen, and I'm so happy to be here with Baha'i on Air.
We'd like to thank you for watching, and please join us again for Baha'i on Air.